I'm going to open the city council. Springfield City Council regular session with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon.
Here.
Counselor Weber.
Here.
Counselor Moe.
Here.
Counselor Rodley.
Here.
Counselor Blackwell.
Here.
Counselor Doyle. And Counselor Pictionary.
Here.
And Counselor Doyle is excused for the evening, and I'll turn it over to the county.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I will now open the Lane County Commissioners regular session, and we will also do a roll call. This is this is Chair Lori Trigger.
Vice Chair David Lovell.
Commissioner Pat Barr, Bethel.
Commissioner Heather Buck.
Commissioner Ryan Seneca, West Lane.
All right, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, we are holding two public hearings on the matters of adopting the Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District's 2023 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan as our first item, and amendments to the Springfield Development Code for housing opportunities in non-residential areas as our second item. The Springfield City Council is meeting jointly with the Lane County Board of County Commissioners because both items require joint adoption.
Thank you. I'll now call for any disclosures from any Board of Commissioner members who need to declare an abstention due to a conflict of interest or biases. So I will, to make this a little easier on us all, I'll go first to myself. I have no conflicts or biases to declare. Vice Chair?
No biases.
Commissioner Farr?
I have none.
Commissioner Buck?
None.
And Commissioner Seneca?
None.
Thank you.
As we begin our meeting tonight, there are two designated times for public testimony for each public hearing. If you are attending in person, please complete the request to speak card located at the entrance of the City Council chambers and give it to the city recorder. If you're joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak at either of those times, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The order of public testimony is as follows: anyone in person in the council chamber, and then anyone who has raised their virtual hand. I'm going to go ahead and open the first public hearing on an ordinance adopting Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District's 2023 Comprehensive Plan as the recreation element of the Springfield Comprehensive Plan, amending the Eugene Springfield Metropolitan Area General Plan to repeal the 2012 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan and add a reference to the Springfield Comprehensive Plan recreation element, and adopt a savings clause and a severability clause, and providing an effective date.
And for the items requiring joint adoption, this is a second reading and public hearing on ordinance 1392 in the matter of adopting Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District's 2023 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan as the recreation element of the Springfield Comprehensive Plan. Removing and replacing the 2012 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan, adopting Type 2 text amendments to the Eugene Springfield Metropolitan Area General Plan, adopting the Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District's Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan as a special purpose plan of the Lane County Rural Comprehensive Plan, adopting a saving clause and severability clause, and providing an effective date. For county-only adoption, this is a second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2403 in the matter of amending Lane Code. Excuse me, Mayor, did you want me to continue on with this part? Are we doing them both at once? My apologies.
No, on my script, you keep going.
We're doing both ordinances. All right, thank you. So again, for county-only adoption, this is the second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2403 in the matter of amending Lane Code 16.4004B in order to adopt the Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District's Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan as a special purpose plan of the Lane County Rural Comprehensive Plan. I hereby open this public hearing.
First, we will need to declare potential or actual conflicts of interest. Would the city attorney's office please provide us with direction on declaring conflicts of interest?
Of course, thank you, Mayor and Council and Lane County Board. My name is Mary Bridget Smith. I will be providing some information about public official conflicts of interest. And we've worked on this with Lane County Council, who is here this evening as well. There are two types of conflicts of interest, actual and potential. And actual exists when elected officials or their family or benefit or business would financially benefit or suffer from a decision by council or the board. Elected officials with actual conflicts of interest must recuse themselves. The other type of conflict is a potential conflict of interest that occurs when the official, their family or business could possibly financially benefit or avoid a detriment from a decision by the board or the council. Elected officials are obligated to disclose potential conflicts of interest and the nature of the conflict, and then they can participate. If you have any questions about whether you're dealing with an actual or potential conflict, declare it, and then we can discuss it in more detail.
Before I call on the counselors, could you clarify for us, is being a property owner a potential conflict of interest in this case?
Not in this case, no.
Okay, then we will start with me and then go by award order and have anybody declare any potential or actual conflicts of interest. I have no potential or actual conflicts of interest, and then we'll go to Michelle.
No potential or actual conflicts of interest.
I have no conflict of interest.
No potential or actual conflict of interest.
Am I up? I have
No.
no potential or actual conflict of interest. Is that what you wanted?
Yep, you were good. We're at Beth.
I have no potential or actual conflicts of interest.
Am I up next, Mayor?
Go ahead, Joe.
I have a potential, although slight, and I just thought I'd run that by with Mary B, is that periodically Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District hires me to do training for their park rangers.
I agree. I would describe that as a potential conflict of interest.
Thank you. There you go.
All right, I believe it's on to the county now.
Thank you, Mayor. I will now call for disclosure of any county commissioner who wants to declare an abstention due to conflicts of interest or biases, and then would call for any challenges to a board member's qualifications to hear the matter. Vice Chair?
I have a potential conflict of interest as I'm a property owner of downtown and a developer.
Commissioner Farr?
I have none.
Commissioner Buck?
None.
Commissioner Senega?
I have none.
Is there anyone online or in the room who wishes to challenge the board's qualifications to hear the matter before us? I see none. I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we are on to the staff report, which I hear is the most fun we could have in any land use hearing. Take it away from here.
Good evening. Can everybody online hear me okay?
I can. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm Monica Sather, a planner with the city, and here with me is Jared Bowder, senior planner with Lane County. Before getting into the procedural aspects for consideration, I, along with the project team, want to say how much we appreciate everybody making extra time to consider this effort this evening. I also realize that some of you were not yet elected when Willamette Lane last came to the council and board in late 2022 as Willamette Lane was preparing its draft plan. So I'll mention we have an opportunity to hear from Willamette Lane after the public or after staff give their staff report to hear more about the plan and all that went into creating it. With that, Willamette Lane's 2023 plan updates its previous plan, which was adopted in 2013. With this 10-year cycle, Willamette Lane takes a critical look at its facility assets and whether improvements or expansions to existing ones are needed or whether new ones are needed. The 2023 plan identifies several types of projects, some of which are for parks as we traditionally think of them, natural areas, buildings, paths, trails, and more. The locations on the map are general to set the conceptual stage for the next 10 years of projects, and the full plan document lists all projects that look to a horizon of 20 years out. At this time, there are no site-specific designs proposed, though tonight is an important early step in making those things happen. We'll hear from Willamette Lane later on about their multi-year effort that reflects input from community leaders, the general public, and multidisciplinary staff teams. But to prepare specifically for this evening's hearing, staff provided timely and sufficient notice. In the interest of time, I'll just point to the staff report for those details. And Springfield and Lane County held a joint public hearing with our respective planning commissions on April 2nd. So far, staff have not received testimony from the public. We're here for joint consideration this evening because of the reach the plan has throughout the Springfield region. So outlined here are the areas of the plan that extend outside Springfield city limits and extend to Springfield's urban growth boundary and coterminous metro plan boundary. As indicated in the ordinances, the proposed plan amendments do not just involve adopting Willamette Lane's plan. There are several specific actions that staff ask council and the board to consider jointly to make this possible within Springfield's and Lane County's comprehensive planning frameworks. I'll highlight two on the slide for now in the interest of time. So the first, adopting Willamette Lane's 2023 plan as the recreation element of Springfield's comprehensive plan. Keep in mind this approach is different than last time because Springfield is now working toward its own comprehensive plan and has adopted specific elements since the last time we adopted Willamette Lane's plan. At that time, we just relied on the Metro plan. Another main one in the last bullet here will be to make relatively minor text amendments to the Metro Plan text to clarify the adoption and role of Willamette Lane's comprehensive plan in relation to other comprehensive planning efforts. And this will be limited to a footnote in the Metro Plan's park and recreation facilities element and will coordinate with other updates in the preface. Bear with me on this. This is the longest slide I have. Adopting Willamette Lane's 2023 plan is tied to criteria of approval, some of which are specific to Springfield's actions, some of which are specific to Lane County's actions, and the joint ones being here on this slide. The criteria of approval that apply to joint actions are at Springfield Development Code 5.14135 for Springfield Comprehensive Plan Amendments, and the key one at Lane Code being 12.330 for Metro Plan Amendments. Regarding the Oregon statewide land use planning goals, Goal 8, which is recreational needs, is most directly relevant. Briefly, it specifies what should go into park and recreation comprehensive plans, and it establishes the basis for the agreement between Willamette Lane and the city that Willamette Lane serve as Springfield's park and recreation service provider. The lengthy staff report is partly due to just so many other goals that relate at the state level. Park and recreation just touching so many topics. So I'll just mention transportation and natural resources as a couple. As for the Metro Plan and Springfield Comprehensive Plan, amendments must allow the Metro Plan and Springfield Comprehensive Plan to continue to make sense. So in doing that, amendments must show how they're consistent with all relevant sections of those documents and not just make sense for that specific portion where text is changing. Lane County will also consider an amendment to the Lane Code for the areas of the 2023 plan that are solely in Lane County jurisdiction outlined here. And Jared will share more about that.
Because the two facilities, Harvest Landing and the Thurston Hills Natural Area, are outside Springfield's urban growth boundary and the Metro Plan boundary, Lane County must also take action to adopt Willamette Lane's comprehensive plan as a special purpose plan within our Rural Comprehensive Plan, or RCP for short. This is accomplished by a minor text amendment to Lane Code 16.404 to list the name of the specific plan being adopted, as shown on the next slide. Here you can see in red italic font the minor text amendment to Lane Code that's needed in order to adopt the Willamette Lane Comprehensive Plan. The RCP itself only contains a chart which lists examples of the adopted special purpose plans, and the codified list is within this section of Lane Code 16.404B.
So to conclude this portion, the findings in the staff report substantiate staff's and the planning commission's recommendations to adopt Willamette Lane's plan and associated amendments, specifically why the proposed actions to adopt at the city and county levels comply with the approval criteria. Willamette Lane's representative will speak to the findings during the applicant testimony portion of the hearing. Staff asks that council and the board deliberate this evening following the hearing. We have July 1st on city council's calendar to take action if possible. The board's action would follow on July 30th. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And with the staff report complete, we'll now hear from Willamette Lane for a presentation and any testimony.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to take some time. Number one, I'm Michael Wargo, Executive Director at Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District. Very proud to sit in front of you tonight and present this plan that my team behind me has worked very, very hard on. I would just like to introduce some folks that are with us in case there's any questions or feedback that they would be available to answer any questions you may have. And that's my President Wig of the Willamette Lane Board, Vice President James of the Willamette Lane Board. We have Directors Eric Adams, Planning Parks and Facilities, Director Wygant, our Community Engagement Director. We also have Legal Counsel Kristen Denmark and Manager Jackie Rochefort, our Planning Manager, as well as the Project Manager and the maestro behind this entire project, Senior Planner Christina Bowe. So just wanted to make you aware. And later I will be handing it over to Colin MacArthur from Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architecture and Planning. So for almost 80 years, Willamette Lane has been honored to serve the community of Springfield to provide public spaces to recreate, learn, grow, and gather. Through challenges and events like wildfires, January's ice storm, and COVID, I hate to bring up negatives, we have seen just how essential a service that we provide to our community and how important it is to our community. We understand that parks and recreation provide more than spaces to play. They promote physical and emotional well-being, safe and welcoming spaces where everyone belongs. They also support economic development and improve the quality of life of those that live in Springfield as well as Lane County. Willamette Lane prides itself on being a cornerstone of making Springfield what it is today. And we believe that this plan and its analysis will help us to continue to meet the community's needs and expectations for the next 20 years. This plan has had strong community support. We've heard from over 3,800 members of our community of what they want out of their park and recreation district, and has already received unanimous support from the Willamette Lane Board. You're going to hear a little more about this in a bit, but I think it's worth me mentioning is that Willamette Lane's mission is to deliver exceptional parks and recreation to enrich the lives of everyone we serve. I always like to underline, bold, circle the word everyone. It's really important that everyone feels a sense of belonging in our parks and our facilities, and I strongly believe that this plan delivers on that. So to present this plan tonight will be Christina Bowe, Willamette Lane Senior Planner, and Colin MacArthur from Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architect and Planning, who is our consultant supporting the plan amendment application and adoption process. And again, I really want to also thank the city staff that's really been just a great guide for us through this process. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Christina and to Colin.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Michael. So I believe our slides, we're off on our slides here. Oh, I have control, that's why. Okay, let's see. This will help. All right, thank you. So tonight I'll be providing a high-level overview of the plan and the process that was used to create it and some of the priorities and outcomes that it recommends. So as Michael mentioned, our mission statement. This comprehensive plan is that we're discussing tonight is kind of our roadmap to help us achieve our mission as a district. We update this plan on a 10-year basis to ensure that we're responding to our community's changing needs and also to make sure that we're aligning with our community partners' plans and visions going forward as well. This diagram provides a good graphic representation of all the work that was included in our planning process. It started in 2022 in the spring. At this time, we came to the City of Springfield's Committee for Citizen Involvement for approval of our community engagement work plan. In the summer and fall of 2022, we implemented the engagement plan and conducted most of our analysis. And that fall, we were able to share all of our findings with the City Council and Board of Commissioners who were here at the time. By spring of 2023, we had a draft plan ready for public and partner review. And then we made our revisions and the Willamette Board of Directors approved the final plan in the fall of 2023. So in these next slides, I'm going to be focusing on the community engagement and the analysis that went into the plan that most of the plan's findings are based on. So as I mentioned, our community outreach process was founded on community engagement work plan that was reviewed, revised based on feedback, and approved by the city's Committee for Citizen Involvement. It adheres to all Goal 1 guidelines and uses a broad range of strategies to capture as much feedback as possible. Combined, the strategies resulted in 32,000 points of contact in our community and feedback from over 3,800 community members. So I'll share some of these strategies that we used. The main primary information gathering tool that we used was a survey. It reached the broadest audience, nearly 1,600 community members, and asked the most specific questions. A statistically significant response rate was achieved, meaning that we can assume with about 94% certainty that the results are statistically representative of the community of Springfield's desires. This is one example of a result from the survey that shows that park maintenance and safety, natural areas, trails, and restrooms are some of the top priorities of the community from our park system. And this is a finding that we heard in almost all of the engagement strategies that we used. We held a series of focused conversations that included 235 community members, technical experts, and regional leaders to learn about specific user groups' desires and specific areas of interest. The plan includes findings from each of these. We tabled at 22 different events in the community to poll the public about our offerings. And we learned a lot from our community members and had a lot of fun in the process. So one of the findings from that effort, we learned that some of the top priorities of our community included an outdoor pool or water play feature, expanding our trail system, which is something we always hear about, improving our existing playgrounds, and expanding childcare opportunities. In addition to all of our community engagement that we conducted, the planning process included a lot of technical analysis to inform the needs and priorities of the district. So I'll go through some of this briefly. Our consultants started our effort with conducting a demographic analysis of our community to help us learn who we are planning for. And they noted several trends that I'll highlight here. Our community is becoming more racially and ethnically diverse. So in 2010, for our last plan, census data showed that Hispanic or Latinos represented about 11% of our community. In 2021, for this plan, it increased to 15%. And it is projected to increase to 17% in the next couple of years by 2026. We also have a high percentage of people identifying as living with a disability. In the Oregon state average is 14%, yet 19% of Springfield residents identify as living with a disability in 2021. The last trend I'll note is the increasing number of older adults in our community, or people 65 and older. This trend is anticipated to continue in the future and is another good example of a community change that may influence the types of programs and services that we offer going forward. Each and every district park and facility was inventoried as part of the planning process and scored based on what it offers and its quality and condition. The data collected was entered into ArcGIS, a mapping tool, and it was available for further analysis that I'll show in some of the next slides here. Through this inventory process, we were able to also quantify what we had completed since our last plan in 2010. I'll highlight just a few of them. We made improvements to 16 parks and facilities. We constructed over 14 miles of trail and provided access to over 700 additional acres of natural area, among others that are listed here. A spatial analysis was conducted to look at what areas of our community have walkable access to parks. Walkable access was considered to be half-mile in most cases for the purpose of the study. So areas that are adequately served are shown in pink. Areas that have lower level of service are shown in yellow, and areas that are determined to have no service are shown in gray. Areas potentially served by a school facility are shown in a pink hatch, and these highlighted opportunities where stronger partnerships with Springfield Public School could help meet gaps in service for adjacent neighbors. So overall, through that process, we could identify that 25% of our residents live within adequately served areas, 55% within the lower service areas, and 20 within our no service areas. And that means that at least 80% of our community is getting some level of service. We also did this analysis, as you can see, for trails. So 54% of our community lived within walkable access to a trail access point, and 46% do not. I'm not sharing that map just in effort to keep this concise. This map includes all the data talked about previously and was created by our consultant team as a tool to help us identify the need for new projects and prioritization of projects. So red areas are areas where our investments potentially have the greatest benefit and are considered a higher priority region to increase our level of service to the greatest number of residents in the community. In addition to high priority areas, we know we also, in addition to what's shown here, I guess, we also need to be looking towards the areas that are growing in our community. So where new development is happening and making sure that we don't have new neighborhoods emerging without being adequately served in the future. Out of all this analysis and engagement came 7 key goals, which are identified in our plan. These goals address district administration, parks and parkland, trails, our building facilities, maintenance, recreation, and fiscal management and plan implementation. For each of these goals is a set of strategies and actions, and then they're further supported by a capital project list, which is included in the appendix of the document. So our capital project list includes 118 projects in total for the 20-year planning horizon, and it's broken into 3 main phases. So there's short term, which is 1 to 5 years, midterm, which is 5 to 10 years, and then long term is 10 plus years. We also have an ongoing project list, which the timeline is uncertain. So this slide just shows the project categories, project types that are included in that capital project list, and the number of projects that fall within each. This capital project list has a map associated with it where you can see where short and midterm projects are proposed to occur, and some ongoing projects. It doesn't show long-term projects, as we assume that we will be updating this plan in 10 years and we can update the map at that time. An additional map was created and provided for trails, which I'm also not showing, but is included in the plan. And then to make this a little bit more tangible, here are some specific examples of projects that rose to the top of our priority list. These are short-term projects. So we identified a need to upgrade some of our existing parks, including Tyson Park, Game Bird Park, Georgia Pacific Natural Area, James Park, and Menlo Park. We identified a priority to include an outdoor water play feature at one of our renovated or new parks. We identified a need for a new neighborhood park, specifically at Woodland Ridge neighborhood development, as that is currently underway. We identified a need to acquire land for future park development in areas that are redeveloping or proposed to develop in the future, and for example, Glenwood area. And then we had several trail projects, one being the McKenzie River multi-use path, which is a multi-use path that extends from the southern point of the levee path eastwards towards Thurston to connect that region into Springfield a little bit better. The document closes with a general funding strategy for implementation of projects, which serves as a guide for our separate capital improvement program. The primary revenue sources Willamette Lane relies on for implementation of the project has not changed since our last plan and includes our building and construction fund, which relies on public tax dollars, system development charges, grants, donations, and bonds as these funds become available. So in transition to the next part of the presentation, I just want to emphasize that we couldn't have done this plan on our own. We had a tremendous amount of support from partner agencies and groups in the community who we met with. In the case of the city and county, this meant regular meetings and includes perspectives from various department representatives. All this was to assure that the plan's outcomes are relevant and consistent with other plans and align with statewide planning guidance. Looking forward, as our neighborhoods grow more densely in the coming years and lot sizes become smaller as a result, Willamette Lane recognizes that the public open spaces that promote the physical, emotional, and environmental well-being of our community will be an increasingly important asset to our community. This plan will guide Willamette Lane staff to prioritize district investments so we can make the most impact and bring the most benefit to our community as it evolves. Thank you for your time. And I'm going to pass it to our consultant, Colin MacArthur, from Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architecture and Planning, to discuss the approval criteria for the plan amendment.
Thank you, Christina. First, circling back to the staff report, as staff noted, the amendments must conform to approval criteria that live within the Metro Plan, the Springfield Comprehensive Plan, and the Lane County Rural Comprehensive Plan. To demonstrate that Willamette Lane's plan is ready to adopt, I'm going to focus on highlighting key findings that respond to the most relevant approval criteria. Starting with the statewide planning goals, the most relevant goal is Goal 8, recreational needs. Other goals that I'll highlight tonight are those related to resource lands, open space, natural areas, and transportation. Goal 8 focuses on providing adequate recreational facilities and opportunities for current residents and visitors. Goal 8 addresses needs for residents in urban areas while balancing natural resource protection and preservation of non-urban areas. Specifically, a guideline in Goal 8, Guideline A3, states long-range plans and action programs to meet recreational needs should be developed by each agency responsible for developing comprehensive plans. Goal 8 recommends inventories to determine recreational needs and the development of needs assessments, plans, strategies, and projects that respond to those needs. Willamette Lane's plan includes all of those components. Within the planning area, Willamette Lane owns 1,630 acres of land and 45 facilities. The plan includes level of service standards for park classifications within the planning area, the district boundary, and the plan proposes increasing the level of service from 21.8 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents to 25.55 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. And based on this standard, Willamette Lane projects that 289.71 acres of parkland are needed by 2035. Well, the plan includes strategies and actions for acquiring these lands, developing, improving, and managing parks and natural areas, and developing and improving walking trails and biking trails and other facilities and programs. The plan includes capital projects, as Christina noted previously. The plan includes best practices for implementation, appropriate community engagement, transparent decision-making, and sufficient resources. The plan includes a financial strategy updated every 5 years that is a roadmap that guides the district's capital improvements plan, which is approved annually by the Willamette Lane Board of Directors. The plan targets the investment and development of new parkland in underserved areas. Generally, these are areas that have the capacity to provide more housing and where parks and recreation facilities are needed most to support future residents. The plan explicitly notes that an integral part of the planning process was to create a plan consistent with other local planning documents and in compliance with Goal 8. Moving on to some of the other goals. Goal 3, agricultural lands does not apply within urban growth boundaries. The intent is to preserve and protect agricultural land. Willamette Lane has one facility outside of Springfield's urban growth boundary on agricultural land, and that is Harvest Landing. That facility is classified as a natural area park. According to this goal, natural area park uses are consistent with those allowed on agricultural land. Therefore, taking an exception to this goal in order to comply with it is not required. And then like Goal 3, Goal 4, forest lands does not apply within urban growth boundaries. The intent is also to preserve forest land this time. Willamette Lane has one facility in the county outside the urban growth boundary on forest land, and that is the Thurston Hills Natural Area. That park is also classified as a natural area park. And like Goal 3, natural area park uses are consistent with those allowed on forest lands. Therefore, an exception is not required. Goal 5, which addresses open space, scenic, and historic resources and natural areas. The city has a separate Goal 5 inventory of these areas, open spaces, natural areas, scenic and historic areas, excuse me. The proposed amendments do not create or amend inventoried Goal 5 resources, nor do they change any adopted protection measures. The plan itself includes findings and actions that address the significance and importance of these areas. And then since 2012, when that plan was adopted, Willamette Lane's natural areas have grown from 186 acres and no dedicated staff in 2012 to well over 800 acres and 2 full-time staff in 2023. The plan supports expanded habitat and natural area amenities within parks. The plan also supports opportunities to acquire land for improved capacity and access to existing natural areas, including parks such as Harvest Landing, Thurston Hills Natural Area, Willamette Heights, and Georgia Pacific Natural Area. The connection between the purpose of Goal 5 and the findings, goals, and strategies in the plan are mutually supportive and consistent in their intent. And then Goal 12, transportation. The comp plans, Willamette Lane's plans project list was compared to that of the Springfield Transportation System Plan for consistency. The analysis did not reveal any conflicts and instead revealed similar comparable projects and characteristics, which is a product of good coordination. There are 9 projects included in the plan that are similar and consistent with the Springfield Transportation System Plan. And as detailed in the findings, adoption of the plan will not significantly affect an existing or planned transportation facility and thus complies with the transportation planning rule and Goal 5. There's a lot on plan consistency with the Springfield comp plan, the Metro plan, and Lake County's plan in the findings. For Willamette Lane's purposes, this plan replaces and supersedes all previously adopted Park and Rec comprehensive plans. As staff noted, upon adoption, the plan will become Springfield's acknowledged recreation comprehensive plan element. And the staff report and application materials include extensive findings substantiating consistency with really all of these plans. And all of these plans recognize Willamette Lane and they recognize Willamette Lane as the park and recreation services provider for the city of Springfield. Excuse me. And then circling back to Willamette Lane's mission, state and local trends and recent policies have focused on addressing housing needs providing for missing middle housing and increasing residential density. This in turn increases the need for park and recreation services and heightens the value of these services in support of housing development. Through its spatial analysis and identification of priority investment areas, Willamette Lane's plan is calibrated to deliver parks and recreation services where they are needed most. The application and staff report itself demonstrate that the district has fulfilled its specific comprehensive planning requirements. More broadly, Willamette Lane has provided a high level of service to Springfield and Lane County since 1944. And Willamette Lane itself is an award-winning and nationally accredited park and recreation district. Adoption of the plan, the 2023 plan, as part of Springfield and Lane County's comprehensive plans, will guide the district's actions. And adoption will allow Willamette Lane to improve and expand services to enhance the quality of life in this community year after year for the next 20 years. With that, thank you for your time and consideration. I'd be happy to take any questions now or wait to the applicant's rebuttal period.
Does anybody have any questions now? I think we're good. Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Hart.
Just a for clarity question. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Looking at the slides and looking at, and zooming in on the areas you're talking about. You're looking to increase the density, the park availability from 21.8 to 25.55 per thousand of population. Just for comparison, can you cite what the city of Eugene has, for instance? And if you can't, that's an out of the left field question, but.
Yeah.
That is something we could find easily and be able to get it for you afterwards. I don't have it off the top of my head. I can tell you that most of that increase was due for us because of Thurston Hills natural area set our natural area standard so high. And so in order to increase in areas that we like a sports park, to provide another neighborhood park, we do have to increase our standards so that we can accommodate the new parkland that we need now.
Well, thank you. It's not a burning issue for me, but
Yeah.
my impression, and I lived in Springfield for quite some time. My wife and I lived here for some time, and I coached at Springfield High School. I've always thought that Springfield was so far ahead of the rest of the world in terms of park development, and I just want some confirmation of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, then we're going to take some public testimony. Thank you. I do not have any cards for this item.
Appears we have no hands for this item.
All right. I don't know that we need you guys back to rebut that. All right, are there any objections from the city council or board of county commissioners for closing the public hearing? Seeing none, the Springfield City Council public hearing is now closed.
And also seeing none, I will close the Lane County Board of Commissioners public hearing on this item.
Are there any changes or the council or board would like to make to propose to the proposed amendments or findings of fact? All right. So the staff's going to bring back the ordinance for adoption for the council back on July 1st, 2024. And then I'm going to turn it over to the county to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mayor. So with the closure of the public hearing, and we now have 3 motion options before us, and I would direct staff to bring the ordinance back for adoption as written on July 30, 2024. Vice Chair, do you have those motions before you?
I do, ready to make one.
Terrific.
I move tentatively to approve and to set a third reading on July 30th, 2024 to deliberate on ordinance PA 1392 and ordinance number 24-03 as presented.
I would love to second that.
Great, thank you. It's been moved by Vice Chair Lovell, seconded by Commissioner Farr to approve the second reading and set a third reading for July 30, 2024 for ordinance PA 1392 and ordinance 2403 as presented. All commissioners in favor, please signify with an aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Team Willamette Lane, for coming down and joining us this evening. You're more than welcome to stay for the other hearing. All right, we'll give you guys a couple minutes. Great job. Nice work.
That's the best town in the county.
See you Friday.
See you again.
All right, we're ready to move to the second public hearing this evening. I'm going to open the public hearing on an ordinance amending the Springfield Development Code, section 4.7.370, income qualified housing on property owned by religious nonprofits, 4.7.405, income qualified housing in various sections, and adopting a savings clause and severability clause and providing an effective date.
This is a second reading and public hearing on ordinance 24-04 in the matter of amending Lane Code, chapter 10.600 to adopt amendments to incorporate changes in state law and modernize the Springfield Development Code for the urbanizing area between the city limits and the urban growth boundary of the city of Springfield and adopting a savings and severability clause. I hereby open the public hearing for the Board of County Commissioners.
I'm going to ask the council to declare potential or actual conflicts of interest, and I'll start, and then we'll go by ward order.
And Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Go
but if I could just interject, this hearing's a little bit different nature. You had asked about being property owners before. This is changes to the development code. So it could be appropriate to declare potential conflicts of interest for counselors who own property in Springfield.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm going to declare a potential conflict of interest as a property owner in Springfield.
Potential conflict of interest as a property owner in Springfield.
I have a potential conflict of interest as I own property in Springfield.
Potential conflict of interest as a property owner in Springfield.
Potential conflict of interest as I own property in Springfield.
And Joe, we're ready for you.
I have a potential conflict of interest because I own properties in Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I will now call for any disclosures on the part of Lane County Commissioners who wish to abstain due to conflicts of interest biases. Vice Chair Lovall,
Vice Chair, I'd like to declare a potential conflict of interest as a property owner in Springfield.
Commissioner Farr,
I have none.
Commissioner Buck,
I will declare a potential conflict of interest as I am a property owner in Springfield.
Commissioner Seneca,
I have none.
and I have none to declare as Chair Trieger. Thank you. Are there any challenges to the board's qualifications to hear this matter? Hearing none from the room and seeing no raised hands, I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we please have the staff report?
Good evening, counselors, board. I have a pre-recorded presentation. This will be a reiteration of the work session that happened on May 28th for City Council, but for the board, bear with me. It's about 15 minutes and then I'll open it up to questions and answers and I'll have our team get started with it. Hello, and thank you for attending this public hearing for the Housing and Non-Residential Areas Code Amendments. My name is Haley Campbell. I'm a senior planner with the City of Springfield and the project manager for these code amendments. In a minute, I will start the presentation. As this hearing is pre-recorded, I ask that you hold all questions until the end. In 2023, the Oregon legislature made efforts to address the state's housing crisis with new laws and $1.2 billion in additional spending on housing and homelessness. On any given night in 2022, at least 18,000 Oregonians were homeless, and state analysts predict Oregon needs to build at least 500,000 homes over the next 2 decades to keep up with demand. The legislature passed several bills that have prompted the following housing opportunities in non-residential areas amendments to the Springfield Development Code. They are House Bill 2984, Commercial to Residential Building Conversions, which took effect January 1st, 2024. The bill requires local governments to allow conversion of a building from commercial to residential use without requiring a zone change or conditional use permit, as long as the land is not zoned for industrial use. House Bill 3151, Manufactured Dwelling Parks on Non-Residential Lands. It took effect January 1st, 2024. Manufactured housing makes up 8% of Oregon's total housing and 16% of the affordable housing stock, according to the American Community Survey data collected between 2013 and 2017. That's why House Bill 3151's major impact on Springfield is to allow manufactured dwelling parks serving households with incomes of 120% or less of area median income, or AMI, to be added to the bill's definition of affordable housing. The bill also adds property owned by a housing authority, manufactured dwelling park nonprofit cooperative, or nonprofit cooperative organized as a public benefit corporation whose primary purpose is the development of affordable housing, to the list of properties where local government is required to allow income-qualified housing. And House Bill 3395, Residential Use of Commercial Lands, which took effect June 30th, 2023. House Bill 3395 allows housing within commercial land use districts if it is affordable to households with incomes of 60% AMI or less, or for mixed-use structures with ground floor commercial with residential units that are affordable to moderate income households, or 80 to 120% AMI. The bill requires cities to apply the residential density level most comparable to the commercial density currently allowed in the land use district. The City of Springfield and Lane County are seeking approval of amendments to the Springfield Development Code. This is a Type 4 legislative amendment that applies to all land within the Springfield urban growth boundary, which includes land within city limits and urbanizable land outside the city limits. So the amendments require co-adoption by Springfield City Council and the Lane County Board of County Commissioners. The code amendments specific to Springfield include conversion of commercial to residential use requirements in House Bill 2984, changes to Springfield Development Code 4.7.370 for income-qualified housing on property owned by religious nonprofits, Springfield Development Code 4.7.405 to implement bills related to income-qualified housing, and address changes to 4.7.375 through 4.7.385 for architectural design and multiple unit housing, and minimum development standards 5.15.110 and site plan review 5.17.110 for multiple unit housing. The code amendments specific to Springfield and Lane County include address state law related to single room occupancy and significant changes to 4.7.100 for various districts. Next, we're going to address the code changes in the city limits and specific to the City of Springfield. Substantial changes were made to 4.7.405 for income qualified housing. The standards in 4.7.405 A through D were reorganized to make the code clearer and easier to interpret, and to address House Bills 2984 and 3151. Subsections E and F were created in response to House Bill 3395. Sections A and B address the purpose and applicability of income-qualified housing. The rest of this section of code was amended as follows. For 4.7.405C, this section was amended by including a manufactured dwelling park that serves populations with incomes of 120% of the area median income within the definition of income-qualified housing, including the addition of several income-qualified housing owners, namely those owned by a nonprofit corporation organized as a public benefit corporation whose primary purpose is the development of income-qualified housing, a housing authority, manufactured dwelling park nonprofit cooperative, or a utility provider who conveys property for one of the listed owners, and reorganizing existing code language into various subsections for clarity. For 4.7.405D, this section was amended by creating a site suitability subsection, development standards subsection, and a density and height in residential district subsection, and addressing the lack of income qualified middle housing standards in SDC 4.7.405. To comply with House Bill 3395, SDC 4.7.405E was amended by allowing income qualified housing in commercial districts and in mixed-use structures, provided they meet the area median income thresholds shown in the code, and by listing the land use districts that allow only commercial uses and not industrial uses, a requirement in the House bill, to be neighborhood commercial, community commercial, major retail commercial, general office, mixed-use commercial, Glenwood commercial mixed use, or Glenwood office mixed use districts. For 4.7.405F, this section was amended by creating a site suitability subsection for requirements where this type of housing is not permitted, and creating a standards and procedures subsection for this type of housing. A requirement in House Bill 3395 is to apply the most comparable residential density to the allowed commercial uses in the subject district. After consulting and seeking feedback from the Planning Commission and the public, the following was added to the draft code. A comparable residential density for income qualified housing in commercial districts and in mixed-use structures is the mixed-use residential density standards. The code therefore contains minimum densities for commercial districts and the mixed-use commercial district when residential only and when part of a mixed-use development. There are no maximum densities in this section because neither the commercial districts nor mixed-use districts have a maximum density for residential. In the commercial districts and mixed-use commercial district, the mixed-use commercial district development standards apply. The development standards in the Glenwood commercial mixed use and Glenwood office mixed use are referenced and stay the same. This option was chosen by the Planning Commission because it allows for simpler and more flexible code standards that support more opportunities for income qualified housing. For instance, the existing mixed-use commercial district currently requires a minimum of 60% of the ground floor area within a new mixed-use building be dedicated to commercial uses versus the proposed code for income qualified housing would only require 10% of the total gross floor area be in non-residential use if less than 20 units are provided in a mixed-use structure. The next item is changes to 4.7.375 through 4.7.385 for multiple unit housing. For consistency and clarity, the standards in 4.7.385B, building orientation, and C, building form, were moved to 4.7.375 to match the clear and objective standards that already contain building orientation and building form standards in the current code. SDC 4.7.380 was amended to clarify that multiple unit housing is allowed in other districts besides R2 and R3. And SDC 4.7.385 was renumbered following the removal of sections B and C that were moved to 4.7.375. Amendments were also made to 5.15.110 for minimum development standards and 5.17.110 for site plan review when building multiple unit housing. This included clarifying that the MDS process does not apply to new multiple unit housing. A site plan review or multiple unit housing review in 4.7.380 for the clear and objective tract would apply. And amending the site plan review applicability standards to clarify one incidence where a multiple unit housing site plan review is required when an addition, expansion, or change of use is for a non-residential use in a land use district that is not residential and located within 50 feet of a residential land use district or residentially designated land. An exception to this has been provided when a multiple unit housing development can meet the clear and objective standards in 4.7.380. Finally, We are going to address other code changes in the urbanizable land outside the city limits and specific to Lane County. House Bill 3395 established a density standard for single-room occupancy or SRO units. Single-room occupancy is permitted outside the city limits but in the urbanizable area. The bill states that each local government shall allow the development of an SRO with up to 6 units on each lot or parcel zoned to allow for the development of a detached single-family dwelling and with the number of units consistent with the density standards of a lot or parcel zoned to allow for the development of residential dwellings with 5 or more units. This means that in the R1 district, a lot or parcel can contain up to 6 SRO units. In the R2 and R3 districts where multiple unit dwellings are allowed, the density of SRO units will match the density in the applicable district. A separate but related topic to the Housing and Non-Residential Areas Code amendments were amendments to the standards in 4.7.100. Specific development standards from 4.7.100 were moved to the district that references that district. These amendments will make the code more user-friendly by listing standards that apply to a district in one place instead of needing to reference another chapter in the code. A good example of this is the creation of Springfield Development Code 3.4.330, specific development standards in the Booth-Kelly Mixed-Use District. In the current development code, you can find public and private park standards for the Booth-Kelly Mixed-Use District in 4.7.200, residential uses in commercial districts in 4.7.210, and warehouse commercial retail and wholesale in 4.7.245. To make the code more user-friendly, staff moved these standards to the Booth-Kelly Mixed-Use District section of code in 3.4.330 and created sections specific to these types of uses. Several changes were made to the draft code since the Planning Commission public hearing. These changes were necessary to amend the base zone mixed-use development standards in 3.2.615 for maximum building height in the mixed-use residential district when abutting residential. The MUR district's density is regulated by height. Thus, the height in the MUR is limited by the abutting R1 or R2 district. Amend the schedule of use categories in 3.2.710 for the Public Land and Open Space District for formatting purposes and to explain the PLO district's legislative history for uses previously listed under the Secondary Uses heading. Move the conversion of a hotel or motel for income qualified housing to a new section, 4.7.405G, as it was previously listed under ORS 197A 445 when it is part of ORS 197.748. And move the density and height standards to 4.7.405H, as they were incorrectly listed as part of ORS 197A.445. In addition, for clarification purposes, the reference to the mixed-use residential district height standards were revised in subsection H, and the Glenwood Residential Mixed-Use District was removed. The density in the MUR and GRMU are regulated by height, not density. After reviewing ORS 197.748, a height bonus of 36 additional feet is permitted in the MUR district. The GRMU standard was removed from the list of density and height bonuses in residential districts, as there is no maximum height in the GRMU. These changes are highlighted in the legislative code and key changes documents in tonight's agenda packet. The amendments to the development code are subject to a set of approval criteria noted here. Based on the staff report and findings, the code amendments are in conformance with the Metro Plan and Springfield Comprehensive Plan, are consistent with applicable state statutes, and are consistent with applicable statewide planning goals and administrative rules. Thus, the applicable approval criteria are met. This request is reviewed as a Type 4 legislative amendment to the Springfield Development Code, which requires review and a recommendation by the Planning Commission and ultimately adoption of ordinance by City Council. Since some of the Housing and Non-Residential Areas Code amendments apply to areas outside the city limits and the city has an intergovernmental agreement with Lane County, the Lane County Board of Commissioners must also co-adopt the amendments for them to apply outside city limits. The Springfield Planning Commission issued a recommendation on April 2nd. The next step is this joint public hearing. A second reading is tentatively scheduled for the City of Springfield City Council on July 1st. The Board of County Commissioners will co-adopt the ordinance at their third reading.
Okay, thank you for bearing with me for that 15-minute presentation. I'm going to have Jared Bowder with any comments from Lane County.
I don't have anything substantive to add, but just to note that staff is in support of the proposed code amendments for the city of Springfield.
Commissioner Buck.
Thank you. Pardon the interruption, but I didn't have a chance to review the video for the meeting today. And I did notice that there were 2 apartment complexes that were owned by St. Vincent de Paul of Lane County. And I wasn't previously aware that that could be affected. And so I actually need some clarification from our county council regarding that. I will, at the very least, declare a potential conflict of interest as I am related to the executive director emeritus of St. Vincent de Paul. But I need some help to determine whether I should declare an actual conflict of interest, as if St. Vincent de Paul could potentially benefit from or not benefit from the actions associated with this code amendment. And if so, if I should recuse myself from this, from the remainder of the meeting.
Yeah.
Hi, for the record, I'm Tiffany Johnson. I'm Lane County Assistant County Counsel. And I have a clarifying question for you. Did you say that you are related in what capacity to someone?
Related to the executive director emeritus who is still employed by St. Vincent de Paul.
Is it your immediate relative?
Yes.
Okay. Because this adoption would have general applicability throughout the plan area, you are able to still stay on, but you also can recuse yourself if you so choose. But because it's not specific to your, because it's general applicability, you're able to stay on.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just make sure that that potential is still on the record.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for the staff before we take public testimony? I don't see any. Do we have any cards for this item?
No cards for this item?
Any hands raised?
No hands for this item.
All right, so this is the time. All right, this is the time for the council and board to ask any clarifying questions of the staff. Is there something else that the council or board would like more information about before we close the public hearing? I don't see any questions. Then are there any objections from the city council or board of county commission to closing the public hearing? I'm going to close the public hearing for the Springfield City Council.
And seeing no objection, the Lane County Board of Commissioners public hearing also is now closed.
Are there any changes the council or board would like to make before to the proposed amendments or finding of fact? I don't see any. So the staff's going to bring the ordinance back for adoption by city council on July 1st, 2024.
And I would like to please direct our staff to bring back the ordinance for adoption as written, or to modify the ordinance and bring back for adoption July 30, 2024. Vice Chair.
I'm prepared to make a motion. I move to tentatively approve the ordinance number 24-04 as presented and set a third reading and deliberations for July 30th, 2024.
There's the second from the board, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Vice Chair Lovall and seconded by Commissioner Buck to approve the second reading and tentatively approve ordinance number 2404 as presented and set a third reading and deliberations for July 30, 2024. All those in favor signify with an aye, please.
Aye.
Commissioner Senegal, are you still with us? Sorry, I changed my view here. There you are.
I said aye.
Great, thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
And this is the end of our time together. So I'm going to adjourn the city council meeting and thank everybody for joining us and thank our colleagues from the county commission. You are welcome to come over anytime that you want.
I'll be here Friday.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting us, Mayor, Council. Thank you to all the staff from City of Eugene and from Lane County. And with that, this meeting of the Board of Lane County Commissioners is adjourned. See you all tomorrow morning.